Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for iTalk Movies here on the Popcorn Talk. I am going to be talking about a really, really great movie that just came out. It is called First We Take Brooklyn, and I have the star, the co-writer, and the director of the film here with me in the studio, Danny A. It's going to be an amazing show, so please stay tuned.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's iTalk Movies.
Hello again, everyone, and thank you for tuning into this edition of iTalk Movies here at the Popcorn Talk. I'm your host, Sam Davidson. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at SamD43, and I am joined here by Danny A. You have so many accolades listed to your name, especially for this movie. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Where can everyone find you on social media?
Instagram, Danny827.
And shout out to this song, which actually was the theme song for the film, correct?
Yes, it was. King Mean, Brooklyn Stick Up. What's up?
Yeah, you guys can find it online. It's a really good song. And this movie is awesome.
Thank you.
Really didn't know what to expect, going into it. I was excited, and, it completely surpassed my expectations. And
well, thank you. I'm glad to hear.
And I did some research on you, Danny, before watching the film, which I actually really enjoyed. So before we start talking about the movie, I want to talk a little bit about you and your background. You have been a filmmaker, it's been about 10...
Well, the first one that came out was 2010, Holy Rollers. But I would think maybe 12 years now.
Yeah.
Working on it, trying to get it made.
And, before that, you worked in the nightclub industry in New York City.
Yes, I did.
And that is what that film that you just referenced, that's what it's about, right? Or is that a different one?
The first one I made was called Holy Rollers. It's about Hasidic Jews smuggling ecstasy with Jesse Eisenberg.
Oh, yes, that one.
Yeah, that was the first one. Went to Sundance. You're referring to Club Life.
Club Life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was in 2014.
So, the stories that you seem to tell kind of have a bit of you in every single story. And that's what I find fascinating. And I always find it fun when people in the industry that are becoming successful and really came from a different background and they have an interesting story, how they came into all of this.
Yeah, well, for me, I remember reading once that Scorsese, my favorite director, I think everyone's favorite director,
I think he likes you too, apparently.
Oh, I hope so. I mean, a little bit maybe. He's the best. But he said, you first make movies about things people in the neighborhood, people, that you're familiar with. And once you start mastering that and you run out of ideas, then you start opening in broader storyline. So for me, Holy Rollers was just an incredible story about Hasidic Jews that smuggle ecstasy, and I actually knew one of the guys that was caught up in it just from being out in the club scene in New York. I watched this documentary thing, and I thought it would be interesting. But once I did that, I started looking for stories within my own story to see if I could find some stuff, and that's where Club Life came from.
Mm-hmm. And, now you have this new film that, now Let's Take Brooklyn, and it came out in New York last week.
Yeah, Friday. The 9th, it came out in New York and the tri-state area, New Jersey, New Rochelle, Long Island. And it comes out this Friday, February 16th in Los Angeles and Miami.
Yeah.
And we're very excited.
And then later in May, I think there's VOD, DVD, all of that.
That would be in May, and we're hoping to get a pretty long theatrical run. So we're excited. We did very, very well in New York, and now we're hoping to duplicate that in Miami and LA and see how long we can stay in theaters.
Yeah, let's talk about the story a little bit so we can give a fan out there that might see it, or as many of you as possible, some teasers. So we follow Mickey.
Yeah, Mickey Levy.
Oh,
yeah, Mickey. So Mickey goes to jail, goes to prison at age 17. And on a technicality, 18 years later, 19 years later, whatever it is, he gets out. And, he gets a letter from his mom. She passed away. But she says to him, you have an uncle in New York, in Brooklyn, that you obviously know. Go visit him. He's going to take you in. So he comes to Brooklyn. and he just can't get out of his old ways, and he just gets caught up in that whole world again, and it's fascinating.
It is, because you're rooting for this guy from the beginning because we are seeing the film through your eyes.
Yeah.
But then we kind of see you progressively become kind of an asshole. And you're like, oh, Mickey, no, what are you doing, Mickey? But those are...
Mickey, I wouldn't tell Mickey's an asshole in his face, but yeah.
No, God.
Yeah.
God, that would be scary. But it's always a fun thing to watch a film or a TV show where the protagonist isn't really a protagonist, but in the audience's eyes, we're rooting for them.
Well, I did this movie as an actor called The Iceman, where I play this guy named Dino Leprone. He's Richie Kuklinski's best friend in The Iceman, and Richie Kuklinski was a mass murderer. He was a serial killer basically. But as I watched the movie, and the director did such a great job, is you really felt for Richie. He had the kids, the wife, and he was a great father and a provider. And I felt like, that's how, even you call him a hero because he's the star of the movie. He's a killer, but you're kind of still rooting for him. With Mickey, it's an immigrant story, a guy that comes, everyone can relate to that, comes to the States and tries to make it. And you see some good qualities in him, and you're like, I can't believe he's messing up like that. But I feel like that's what makes a great movie.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is the kind of movie I feel like it didn't really go with the rules of Hollywood in movies, which is fun.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I did not want to make it a Hollywood movie. I really wanted to stick to the storyline. I wanted to stick to the characters. I wanted to speak Hebrew and do subtitles. When someone speaks Hebrew, there's no reason for him to speak in broken English for me. And, people, Hollywood or wherever it is, studios would never make a movie like this because it's not commercial enough for them. But when you make independent films and you're able to do that, that's where, magic happens, I feel like.
And, you got some really great cast members along with you.
Yeah.
I mean, Annalyn McCord, honestly, I didn't know she could act like that.
She's great. She was great in this movie.
Was
really
so
good.
impressed.
Yeah, she's amazing. A great person, and been so supportive of the movie and all the press that she needed to do, and just been a pleasure. I want to work with her again. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, it's actually funny because going into this, so I did some research on you, and I didn't know exactly what the film was about, but as I started watching it, and I knew that you co-wrote it and directed it, I go, oh, this is his life story. And then...
No.
And then I go, oh, wait, it can't be. He'd be in jail. Like, this is, 30%, 40%. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, no, I'm interviewing him today.
No, nothing to do with me. But, for me, that is the most fun to play those kind of characters. I mean, it's something that you would obviously not see yourself doing. And when you put me in a movie, I beat everybody up.
Yeah.
It's the fun thing about it. But no, it's obviously not based on me or anything remotely close. But, the similarities are there. I was born in Israel.
Right.
I was raised in Brooklyn. That's where it really stops, But I've been around people similar to that, with that kind of personality and kind of like a badass.
Do you ever, get nervous from taking on past experiences and thinking, well, that really crazy thing happened, and I know if this person sees that movie, they're going to kind of go, yeah, that was me.
Well, no. Most of the people that I make the movies about are not actually real. It's just stories.
I thought you were going to say they're dead.
And they're probably dead. No, but it's I take what I do is like I take an example of one particular story that I heard, and then what I do is I kind of take different stories and create my own different character.
Yeah.
One different character. And I feel like that's the most interesting because you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah.
But no, it's never been really based on one particular. When we did Holy Rollers, I just heard of Hasidic Jews that smuggle ecstasy, and we created Sammy Gold, as one of these many different characters. What we felt is going to be, accurate.
It's so fascinating because I am Jewish. I was bat mitzvahed and I did birthright, and all of that, but I haven't been to Israel much. And watching this movie, I was like, oh, so this is the side mom and dad don't tell you about when they say go to temple. You know,
Yeah.
look at all this stuff.
But you know, for me, that was actually very, very important. You know, when I watched movies about Israel or Israeli characters, it's most of the time biblical or it's or military. It's Mossad agents or anything like that. And I just think that no matter, even through it's through the eyes of a gangster, it's still, you see the culture, the music, the people, and Israelis are just like anyone else.
Yeah.
And they're portrayed in certain ways. For me, it was important just to show their life and how they are in their community.
Yeah.
I feel like we did a good job in portraying it.
You did, because my whole life I always was like, they can't be that good. They're they're humans just like us.
Absolutely.
But it's always fun, and it's an interesting story to follow. Especially, I feel like it does appeal to more than just a certain demographic because it's about immigrants.
Absolutely.
And this story could have happened with any person that moved to America from another country.
Right. Yeah. I mean, most of the movies that you watch about gangsters, people like that, are Italian.
Yeah.
Then lately you see some Russians and Albanians, but never an Israeli. So I felt like that was pretty cool, and just the music and you really feel the community was important to me.
Tell me about directing the film, because this, correct me if I'm wrong, this is your first
Yes,
directorial.
absolutely, yeah. So, I co-wrote the movie with Giancarlo, and once the script was done and I started, trying to figure out who was going to direct this, and I had a few meetings with directors, and I really understood that they don't really get the characters and the storyline, what I'm trying to accomplish. And then, I was thinking to myself, do I need to direct this if I want to make this particular movie? And people were telling me that, you got to be crazy, directing, producing, starring, But I really wanted to make the film. And I figured, let me figure out a way to do it. I knew that if I put a great team behind me, a great DP, a great first AD, a great line producer, and all departments, great heads of all departments, I can probably pull this off. I'm an actor. I know how to speak to actors. I know what actors want to hear. Visually, I felt like I learned a lot by being on set. People thought I was crazy, I mean, it's a big task to take on, but I was ready for it, and I did it. And, I mean, honestly, directing was the most gratifying thing I could do. It's incredible. I think I want to pursue and continue to do
Yeah.
it. Yeah, it was great.
Did you ever think that you would do this one day, or just kind of you're like, well, I might as well do it myself?
No, I never thought about directing, ever. I first and foremost, I was an actor. As a kid, I wanted to be an actor. And then when I got into it, I produced my short. I acted in it. I started producing and acting in little roles. And I was like, it never crossed my mind. But I do whatever it takes to make the film that I want to make, and as good as possible. And I felt like I was the best person for the job.
Yeah.
So I did it.
I mean, sometimes I feel as though people put themselves in their things, and you sometimes wish they didn't. Not in this case.
Oh, thank you.
But, you think, wow, someone to direct, star, and, having written it too in your production company, you produced it, like it's a lot, it's a big responsibility.
It is, and people say to me, you have no fear. It's not about not having fear. Yeah, I don't want to fail, It's just that I believe in myself, and I wouldn't take on a character or a movie about a subject matter that I was not familiar with or I could not pull off in my own mind.
Right.
In my mind, I can do this, and I just have to show people. In my whole life, I've had to show people and prove people wrong. So to me, it was just another challenge.
Yeah, it's always fun when the bar
Yeah.
is set, It's like you always surprise people.
Yeah, I mean, that's not the purpose. I'm not trying to prove,
Yeah.
to people. For me, it's more about what is the best thing for the movie, and I felt like I need to do this, and I'm going to do it my way, and I was the best person to do it, and I did it. I honestly surprised myself that how I adapted to it. But look, you have to understand, it's once you're in it, it's like you gotta perform. But I prepared for 3 months. I sat there. I created my shot list. I knew exactly what I wanted, and when I got in, it was just like go time.
Yeah. And it definitely shows. Like I said, you guys should check the movie out one way or another. It's very fun to watch too because it was all shot actually in Brooklyn.
New York, in Manhattan,
In Manhattan,
Brooklyn.
yeah.
But we shot it in Brooklyn, in locations that are very, familiar to me and where I grew up, where a lot of the Israeli community is, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
great.
And you have a lot of stuff coming up as well that we can't not mention. Of course, you'd worked with Martin Scorsese before. You're working with him again.
Yeah, well, I did a small little role in The Wolf of Wall Street. It was just one little scene, but that was the best time of my life, and I was like, oh my God. Then I auditioned for The Doorman in vinyl in the pilot, and I got that, and that was incredible. But again, it was just a small little one scene. And every time I get to be on set with who I consider the greatest director of all time, it's just exciting, and I learn so much. And so I auditioned for this movie called The Irishman that they're shooting right now, and I got a small little role, a little bit bigger than what the other two were, and I actually go next week to finish it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I also have my next movie that that we're gonna put out is a documentary called Davi's Way that I'm really, really excited about. At my production company, we have a distribution division now, 2B, and we are excited to bring it out. It's about Robert Davi, who's a character actor that I'm sure you know from Goonies and License to Kill. He's an incredible Sinatra singer. He sings, the Great American Songbook, that he likes to call it. And we follow him as he wants to celebrate Sinatra's 100th birthday.
Oh, cool.
And it's really funny. It's great. Tom Donahue directed it. Elon and myself produced it with Robert Davi. And my production company is going to put it out within the next, we're thinking 4 or 5 months.
That's fantastic. I
Yeah.
mean, if you guys are watching, if you're listening, you can kind of see that you, Danny, just very much remind me of like an Al Pacino, like a Israeli Al Pacino or Robert De Niro, all of those kind of people. And I mean, I hope you take that as a compliment.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love those guys. I mean, I grew up on Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, and the greatest of all time. Yeah, I mean, I take that as a compliment, of course. Thank you.
Yeah, it's and it's really cool now that I feel like before when those actors were younger, producing necessarily and doing all these things on your own wasn't as much of as an option for them. But I feel like you're coming into the industry just like doing all of your own stuff and setting it down, and people can do, everyone can do that now.
Well, I remember listening to Scorsese talk about how Raging Bull came together, and he said that De Niro would come to his house and knock on his door and had a book. And the book was about Ray LaMotta, the boxer. And he's like, I want to do this movie. And Marty was like, well, I don't know anything about boxing, But that was the moment where I said to myself, these guys were just like
Yeah.
us, young New Yorkers that are trying to make independent films. And now, of course, they're the biggest movie stars and directors in the world. But they started from somewhere, too. And why can't we make, independent films like that? I mean, they've been very, very successful at it. We're just excited if someone sees our movie. But they set the bar, and if you want to make something, you go ahead, and if you need to produce it, you need to do it, and that's what you do. The acting comes, right now. If I don't really get to audition much, not only because I'm busy. It's if I find the right material, of course I would audition. I mean, but we're concentrating on trying to make things that we want the world to see, that we want to make.
So, do you consider yourself, if you kind of had to choose, people hate this question, so I'm sorry, if you were more of an actor or a writer or producer, kind of like, at least right now, I know it fluctuates in life.
Right. Well, I don't consider myself a writer, even though I co-wrote 2 movies. It's just that I get in there and I help out with the story. I happen to be taking a credit because, the writer is like, you're really writing this with me. But,
Yeah.
So, no, I'm not really a writer. And a director, I mean, this is my first direct
new,
job.
yeah.
Yeah, it's new for me. But an actor, I love acting and producing. I mean, I produced, parties and clubs before. I mean, it's the same thing, basically, putting it together.
Can you tell me and the fans how that's similar, working at a club and nightlife and parties and compared to movies?
Well, when you put together a movie and you put together a party, it all comes together. It's the same thing as far as like, you know, you have so much responsibility putting everything together. So let's say in a club scenario, in a party, you have to make sure you hire the DJ, you get the space, you hire the doorman, you invite, you know, you create the invitations, you invite people, you do all this stuff to put together one particular night. Well, in the movie, it's the same way. You raise the money, you cast the people, you hire the director, you hire a casting director, you put it all together. It's producing on a different level and different business, but it's really just putting it all together. That's what producing really means.
That's awesome. I mean, and it's always fun to see how things can transfer, skills can transfer to the entertainment industry, whatever you want to do. And I love how you broke into industry. I love your story. And
Thank you.
I very much liked this film. It was really, really fun. So please go out and see it. If you're in Los Angeles, it'll be out on the 16th.
And
right?
Miami, yeah.
In Miami, yeah.
Check it out.
And it's out in New York. So thank you again for coming.
Thank you. You're awesome. I really appreciate it.
And thank you all for watching. Rate, review, subscribe. Leave us some comments if you want. And here we have our awesome song again. What's the band called one more time?
The Brooklyn Stick Up. It's King Mean.
Cool.
And check it out.
Yeah. And where can everyone find you on Instagram and everything?
So I'm on Instagram at DannyA27.
Perfect. And you guys can find me, Sam Davidson, at SamD43 on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Maria
First we
Menounos,
take
Kevin
Brooklyn,
Underwood,
takebrooklyn.com.
and the entire Popcorn Talk Network. We would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only, do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.
Since they can't read them. And I'm so high.